Welcome back to the podcast. I have returning guest Pheano Black, Pro
Ooh,
Tour, Leal, top eight. How's it going?
ooh. So
You've recently been kind of a trendsetter, been a meme creator.
I could be spending my time getting ready for Worlds, and instead I'm making memes. I have a problem.
It's been taking off. I think I got a few new followers because of your memes.
Nice.
Oh man.
I need to do one with some of Joe's faces because he always has really good faces during our pictures.
Yeah. Before we go any further, I wanted to give a shout out to our Rate This podcast. So this is a website that makes it easy for you to review and it helps us on discoverability. That's rate this podcast slash A420 podcast. So that's the number 420 podcast. So if you go on, last time we read some nice reviews, although they were, I think, written about a month or two ago. So if you write a review, particularly I think on Apple, lets you write out reviews. Other platforms maybe you just can give a star rating.
I want some funny reviews. Give me some shit to laugh to.
Yeah.
I'll post your shit on Twitter if it's funny.
Just roast us. Just like
Oh,
give us 5 stars, but then the reviews just like a roast.
oh yeah, I love that shit.
All right. So I wanted to kind of recap. Haven't been on in a couple of weeks. What have you been up to last couple of weeks in Flesh and Blood? Have you been playing it at all, or?
Not a ton, just like my local armory stuff that I run, which has mostly just been like teaching some new players and doing like a little bit of Blitz because I probably should learn anything about Blitz before Worlds.
No.
I haven't played a single game of Classic since Nationals.
Do you get a couple of new faces at your local store every so often?
Yeah. We usually get like 1 to 3 new people a month. There's like 2 new people that I've been teaching over the past couple weeks,
Mm-hmm.
just kind of catching them up on the basics of the game, and then kind of as they get past that point, giving them the intermediates of like understanding turn cycles, how to like attack and block, the basic stuff. But just trying to get them up to speed so that way they can go to the next like qualifier season and not feel out of place.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I thought that the scene by me was pretty dead, but actually I found out recently that some of the stores that I don't usually go to have been doing a pretty good job of kind of cultivating like a new wave of Flesh and Blood adoptees. And I think that's pretty cool. Are you going to any of the events coming up? There's going to be a big like 10K battle hardened in Columbus, Ohio, and then also another one in Denver before Worlds. Worlds is almost here.
Yeah, right. It's sneaking up. I don't think so. I think that I'm just going to be spending time hanging out and spending time with family and stuff because, spending so much time doing this game, I haven't really had a chance to catch up with friends and family. And I have some people that are in the area for a very short amount of time and kind of lining up bad with everything of just like, of course, people come to visit right during all these big tournaments.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure I see them before they go. Like my uncle just visited, and I haven't seen him in like 10 years. And I was actually planning on trying to surprise him by visiting him in Japan because I wanted to try to go to Pokemon Worlds next year, which is in Japan. And instead, he just randomly stopped by my house and was just like, "Hey, I'm here, unannounced. Just you didn't think to tell us that you were coming across the world to visit. Just showed up unannounced at my front door. All right."
Is your personality like a familial trait? Is everyone in your family kind of just like this?
Everyone in my family is a character, that's for sure. In different ways.
Yeah.
He's the grumpy old man yelling at the moon character. Uh, it's certainly a character.
I can imagine you in Japan being just like a complete menace.
I'm a menace wherever I go. So
I feel like there's like a culture clash. You're
Mhm.
like loud, outspoken.
Oh, I will not fit in. That's for sure. I'm gonna get lots of funny looks that I will not care about.
Oh man. It sounds like it's gonna be a good time if you do go. They just recently reopened their borders.
Yeah, I'm super excited about that. My goal is to try to qualify for Pokemon Worlds, either TCG or VGC, but I got a lot of catching up to do on that. I'm gonna probably go regardless because Pokemon Worlds is just super fun. It is one of the most well-run events I've ever been to in my life. And then I'll probably try to spend a few weeks just hanging out in Japan because I've always wanted to go there.
Dude, that sounds pretty hype. I will be going to the two Battle Hardens.
Good
Uh,
luck.
thank you. I'm a little bit unsure of what to play. What do you think about the concept of kind of like hiding your best deck or whatever, or do you just like think it's better to just like play whatever the
Well,
deck is?
I haven't been paying attention. First of all, what are they? Are they Blitz CC? What?
I think they're all CC.
Okay. As far as hiding, I don't know. This is new to me. I am used to being a casual scrub and not having to worry about that kind of stuff. I feel like I'm now in a position where I'm incentivized to hide stuff, and I don't know how to feel about that.
Mm,
I don't know because like there's definitely some level of like affecting what people play by calling your shot on certain things.
yeah.
Or like for instance, the Nationals Dromai list that I was on was weird, and if I had shown my deck list ahead of time, it would have changed other people's Dromai lists because we were doing something other people weren't.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
I don't know.
and like we were on certain game plans against Oldhim that I feel like other Dromais weren't, so that would have affected how other people would have sideboarded into us. It'd be like Hamilton calling a shot saying, I'm physical Icelander going into the tournament. People would play differently knowing he's playing that, you know?
Yeah, 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 definitely. I think it's a fine line. Try to, at least on this podcast, to not really hide anything, but
I think if it was Magic, I would care less because I
yeah.
feel like the edges are much smaller on that kind of thing.
In this game, I feel like if you have like a good strategy that other people aren't prepared for, your win percentage is just like crazy.
Yeah, because game plans matter and deck building matters so much more in this than they do in other card games. Where it's like in Magic, it felt like a lot of times you're like within a couple cards of the next person,
Yeah.
and like you're doing the same thing. It's just playing better than them, I guess. But like your game plan isn't going to be vastly different from one mono red aggro to the other mono red aggro deck. You're doing the same thing. You're just hoping things line up and then playing as good as possible.
I wonder, since Talishar is getting more popular, if people start collecting more data, do we reach to like that level of optimize? I wanted to do an episode in the future kind of about early format events versus later format events. And
Mhm.
like the later you are in a format, the more kind of figured out everything is, and then the edges get a lot smaller.
Mm-hmm. I've been thinking a lot about that whole data thing compared to Magic, and I don't think we're gonna like. I'd love to go deeper into this on another podcast because like this is definitely a long topic. And I honestly wanted to make a video just talking about it myself, but I don't think we're gonna have the same thing happen because like kind of like what I was saying, Magic, you're doing a very similar thing to the next person on within the same deck or whatever.
Yeah.
And the optimization is usually like, oh, the deck list gets refined very quickly and plans get figured out very quickly.
Yeah.
Where like net decking doesn't work the same in this game, and like game plans can be vastly different from how I play the deck versus how you play the deck. Like it doesn't matter if there's a bunch of data if we just play the deck differently.
Yeah.
I just don't think the game lends itself to the big data in the same way as Magic and other games do because of how deep the game is.
Okay, that's fair. This is a little bit off topic, but I recently went with some friends to a store and discovered what's called like GOAT format
Hmm.
for Yu-Gi-Oh! And it's like kind of crazy to me how I think that game, honestly, I feel like Yu-Gi-Oh! Plays out in a similar way to a lot of Flesh and Blood, at least like early Yu-Gi-Oh! Where like the way that you play your cards is like so important
Mm.
and there's a lot of like flexibility there. And then so I think like that format, even though it's kind of like a dead format in the sense that there's no like new cards, there's always like constantly like evolving strategies
Hmm.
and like unexplored things. And I think that's kind of how I feel about Flesh and Blood right now.
Old Yu-Gi-Oh is pretty good.
Yeah, where even if, let's say, we figure out at the end of the world championships, this is like the CC deck, right? It could be like the really, like the best one. I think that we could find like a way to like maybe try to metagame against it, even still.
Yeah, and a lot of that's the depth and the balance of the game. It's like the math of the cards is such that there's counterplay to things where like you don't see that as much in other card games sometimes, because when there's a best deck, it's because it's the best deck, like it's oppressive or something, and it's like it's doing something inherently unfair. Kind of like Chain in its heyday, where it's like there is technically counterplay, but it was just mathematically so above what anyone else was capable of doing that's like de facto the best.
Yeah, I feel like in CC there's less of that, but I don't think you're gonna have a good time playing Blitz. At least in my opinion, I feel like Blitz is kind of there.
Hmm.
But we'll find out in a couple of weeks. I wanted to get on to our main topic, which is playing opposite your opponent's strategy, and this is something that I thought about. Actually, Fina, do you play any poker?
I do not. I might actually be playing poker for the first time ever with my buddies in a few weeks. We're like hanging out and doing some drinks and stuff. And one of them's a big poker guy, and he was going to try to force us all to play.
It's
My plan is to not learn the rules of the game and just play the people.
that's definitely a strategy, I think. So in poker, there's like different kind of like styles. Particularly, I'm talking about Texas Hold'em.
Mhm.
So you can like choose to play like poker is kind of different, I guess, like from any TCG where like in a TCG like, you kind of have to play like the cards that you're dealt, right?
Mhm.
But in poker you can always choose to not play. You just give up the ante or whatever. And so usually at any given table there's going to be a couple of people who are playing different in different ways. And like sometimes there's people who want to play every hand and they're described as loose, and then there's people who just want to play when they have kings or aces or something, and that's like really tight. And there's merits to both sides of it, but it's kind of funny how it works out. Usually it's the most profitable to just like do the opposite of what everyone else around you is doing. And I think this is kind of true not only in card games but sometimes like in life as well. I feel like doing exactly what everyone else is around you is doing is rarely like the
Mhm.
most profitable or like the most beneficial like way to behave.
Being a contrarian.
You love being a contrarian.
Oh yeah. I, your topic for this was about that, but actually, I think you just raised a really interesting thought. Your comment of like, oh, you don't have to play every single hand in poker. Flesh and Blood is actually probably one of the only TCGs where that is a thing. Because like in Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, whatever, if I don't want to play this hand, that sucks. That's my hand. In Fab, I don't want to play this hand. All right, I'll just block.
Yeah, that's true. You do have the option to like give up a little bit of value and then just like block.
Like this hand isn't. This ain't it. I'll try again next turn. Hmm.
It's kind of interesting because in Flesh and Blood, I recently saw like a couple different parallels, and I started thinking about this when like I don't know if you know my draft style. I usually don't really force very much at all. I
Mhm.
try to read the table, and I've been having some success with that. But at the same time, I know a lot of people who swear that forcing is just like the best strategy. And I think it really depends on like the makeup of your table. So
I
it's
agree.
like if you're trying to force fi and everybody else at your table is also trying to force fi, and none of you like care to look at the pack at all, you just pick the fi cards, like you're all gonna have a bad time.
Oh, you mean my Nationals draft? Sad.
Yeah, well, I mean, happens. But no,
Happens.
I think that's like something to think about, right? Like if you know, and I mean obviously if you play with a bunch of people that you haven't played with before, it's kind of hard to get a gauge of, but if you know that these people like to force certain heroes, then it doesn't really matter what's in the packs. Like it's to your advantage to kind of like stay away from it.
Hmm.
And likewise, like you can put that pressure on your like the people at your table. If you just like force a hero and you don't really care about reading the signals, then everybody else, if they're like trying to kind of like read and like draft quote unquote correctly, they're gonna move out of the way, right?
I actually like will do both, and it really depends on the table. Sometimes I'll start open and then force or try to play my seat. It really depends on like how good I think the table is sometimes. Like Lil, I did that where day one draft I forced, day two draft I played my seat. Because day one draft I'm like, all right, this is a draft, a lot of random people. I don't know what to expect from a lot of these people. And like even from some of the good players, I don't know what to expect because there's a lot of good players that are just like, yeah, whatever, force. So it's like, whatever. If this is going to be cursed, I'm probably rewarded forcing. And I was. Where the day two draft, I was like, all right, well, we're into day two. This is probably a good draft pod. People will read signals at least. And hopefully. And so I will try to play my seat for a number of picks, and people did read the packs, and everyone at the table more or less played their seat, so I was rewarded for that. But then you get the third version of that where for again my nationals draft, um, I tried forcing and then was forced out of my lane, so I played my seat, and then it turns out that my seat was wrong because people just didn't know what cards to take out of the packs. So then I was put back into the deck I originally tried forcing because people started in that deck and then switched out or something. I don't know. I was very confused. My draft started with like pack one. I think there were like 4 Icelanders when I was trying to play Icelander. And then the draft ended with me and one other Icelander because I went back to Icelander and 4 Fies. I got a 14th pick, pack one. Is it Rise Up, the Dominate card?
Yes.
I got that 14th pick, so I'm like, oh, all right, whatever. I'll just play my seat. I'll play Fi. I saw a couple head jabs in the packs before that I picked up just to hedge. So I'm like, all right, whatever. I'll play Fi. And then it turns out everyone to my left was Fi, and I'm like, how did this come to me? Like, sometimes it's hard to play your seat, and sometimes it's hard to force, and sometimes it's hard to do either. And the draft is just cursed. It's a problem I'm having with this format of just there's so much that can go wrong.
Yeah, I think the example that you brought up is kind of like a good one and something that is like about the point. So I think if it's I don't know if the people to the left of you are just like forcing Fi and like not taking Fi cards or like what it is, but usually I find that the more kind of like train wrecky cursed draft pods are the ones where everybody's like waffling a little bit, like, oh, I'm gonna
Mm,
try to stay open, and then they stay open for too long, and then they're like, oh well, I gotta pick at the end of pack one, beginning of pack two, I gotta pick something, right?
yeah.
And it's just kind of like if you had just like put your nose down, you're like, I'm gonna force Icelander, you're getting cut off, like I don't care. I'm just gonna
Hmm.
pick Icelander cards. It's for me, it's hard to go in that direction, but other people I know who are good players just like thrive in that environment where it's like, oh, I don't care if I'm getting cut off. I'm gonna dig in, double down, and then like the other people just like move out as a
Well,
result.
yeah, I'll do that sometimes, and usually if you moved in early enough, you'll at least push the people to your left out.
Yeah.
And in that example, it felt like I was the 4th Icelander, and that's just an absolute. And it was a 7-man pod, so that's just
Right.
that's an absolute train wreck of a draft if I'm the 4th Icelander. But like what I like to do is try to tell the people to my left that you're this specifically, and then so long as I don't have 2 to 3 people to my right on the same deck, usually it's fine. Like if the person's directly to my right, that's like fairly annoying, but like it's not the end of the world. And then if it's like 2 of us in a row and we're cutting everything, that usually means there might not be another one at the table. Maybe there's one more, but like I'll try to draft in such a way to like push people into something to my left so that they won't waffle. Because like what I don't want is like what you said, the cursed waffling of their jumping between things, or they commit late and no one knows what they're doing.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
it's like when you do that and then they just ignore the signal you send them, it's like there's a rare dragon and a red embermaw in the pack. Your Dromai. Have fun with that. And then they just ignore that and take the wizard card out of the back of the pack, even though you already took a wizard card out of the back of the pack. And it's like, there's clearly an Icelander to your direct right. You should get out of the lane. You're just going to ignore it. All right. It's like that can end up with it being cursed. And then it's going to take you, 7 picks to realize that's going on. And then you won't even realize that they're directly to your left until the next pack, because just because it's gone doesn't mean it was necessarily the person to your left that took it.
Yeah, definitely. I think there are like these like tricky spots, and that's some of like the it's hard to put it into as concrete terms as what we try to do for other topics on this podcast, but I think it's an important one to understand for draft, because
Mm-hmm.
if you were to like draw a table of everybody like at your draft table, honestly like the best like kind of draft partners that you can have to your right and left is somebody who like does like the opposite of you. So it's
Yeah.
like if the person to your right is forcing Phi and then you read it, then you and him or her are gonna have a better draft overall, right?
Yeah. I think this is I was thinking about this last night. I think it's actually a problem of mine where I too often try to be I'm the 2 split and the other person's directly across from me. But like, I think that's what I normally try to do. Just nope. I want to be one of the 2 people on this deck, and they're on the other side of the table, so we're cooperating. But like, I think that's a big problem with the format too. People are too unwilling to cooperate because some percentage of the time they're rewarded for not cooperating,
Right.
by forcing, and it gives mixed. It's the like results oriented thing of like, well, I did well before by forcing, so I'm just going to do it again, even though I just train wrecked this draft for everyone.
I think it's one aspect of my personal game that I'm looking to improve on, like the forcing style, picking like the right spots to force.
Mm-hmm.
I am like you. Most of the time, I'll gravitate towards trying to draft Icelander Dromai where it's open,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like uncomfortable for me to know that people to my right and left are in Phi. But I think that is just like an aspect of my game that I'm gonna have to kind of work on to like understand like here are the right spots. And I wanted
Mm-hmm.
to just bring that up as a topic to let the viewers or listeners know that there's multiple ways I think to go about it. And then we talk a lot about like reading signals, sending signals in one of the previous videos or I guess audio files podcasts, that there is an alternative, and we did like a whole video on forcing, but it's really like I wanted to kind of remove the stigma of forcing, where sometimes it is like a legitimate strategy.
Mm-hmm. I don't think there's anything like inherently wrong with the strategy, and like there could even be the next level of it where you're forcing as a strategy to manipulate what other people in the pod are doing. I don't think that most people are doing that next level of it. They're just stopping at the I'm just going to force this hero thought. But like, it things like that always make me think back to there was that I think it was a pro tour or something for one of the Kamigawa blocks where they would manipulate the pod by what they took pack 1,
Oh yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
they like left white open pack 1 to trick people into white, then hard cut pack 2 white, and then all the payoffs were in pack 2 for being white. So anyone that was white pack 1 just had an unplayable pile of trash.
Yeah, that's like kind of that is like a next level. I think that works best when you have. Are you talking about the Kamigawa block?
I think so. I don't remember the exact story anymore. I just know that was a thing that happened at a major thing, and it was a next level
Yeah,
strategy, and like it makes me think back to those moments. So it's like I can't write off what people are doing as a strategy where like maybe they know something I don't, you know.
yeah, definitely.
And that even makes me think back to like a conversation with Cody right before nationals where he got like curb stomped by physical Icelander a couple times, and he was just getting mad and memeing on it in the chat, and then he just paused for a moment. He's like, you know what, maybe I need to not just write off a deck and write off a strategy. Maybe they know something I don't, and I should just try it out. And then he did, and he was like, "Oh, this is actually really good."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think keeping like an open mind is pretty strong. Because this is like a good transition. I also wanted to bring this concept into playing constructed games. So obviously, like in constructed, you don't have to like draft your own deck, but choosing what deck that you want to play is oftentimes, I guess, the biggest decision whenever you're going to any event. Like choosing what hero, also like how you want to play the hero, like whether you play Icelander with attacks or you play Icelander without attacks. And then
Mhm.
there's always like common accepted wisdom. Like these are good decks. Like for example, at Lille, you play Prism, right? Like
Yeah,
Prism wasn't accepted as being like a quote unquote good deck because it loses to um like
it
all
wasn't
the
like the go-to deck.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Like it wasn't like the deck that people thought it was good. I think like most people were on Briar or Viserai or like one of the rune blades at the time. Either that or you play like Oldham wasn't even that popular. I'm trying to remember like what the meta breakdown was.
didn't see one the entire tournament. You're telling
Yeah,
me
yeah, yeah. And so it's like there I mean like different people have different reasons. I know you just like Prism.
she's cute.
But there's this decision that we make if we don't want to go with the best deck, and it's kind of like playing opposite of what like conventional wisdom is.
Well,
And yeah,
the
go ahead.
Prism thing too is like that reminded me a lot of like the people that just played Jund or just played blue white control and Magic, where it's like I've been playing this deck for 10 years. I'm gonna just play this no matter what because like this may be a counter matchup, but I played the matchup 1,000 times. So like I'm gonna find edges that you can't find because I'm more experienced in matchup type of situation. Um, but that's what Prism was for me, kind of just like I'm just gonna play her no matter what a lot of the time because she's I. It doesn't matter if the other deck is better if I'm better with this deck because I'm gonna get more wins out of that. The edges weren't big enough to switch decks for me.
Yeah, definitely. I think that there again is like kind of pros and cons to both. Obviously, if you play like what's at the top of the meta, like you know that your deck is more or less like going to be refined to some degree, and you know that the strategies that you play are going to be powerful against like a wide variety of the decks that people are playing against. But I
Mhm.
think that you're kind of disadvantaged by people like yourself who are, I guess, like character specialists who have put in a lot more hours because it's there's like a little bit of information asymmetry there where if you're playing the deck that everybody kind of knows about, you're also playing with the deck that everybody's going to try to like figure out at least some kind of a game plan against, right? And I think that it's probably more likely that if you're like just some random Runeblade player at PT Lille, you're not just like repping out against Prism all the time to know exactly like, oh, this is the time that I have to kill this aura at like this life. Like it's just not like part of your
That's
practice.
where I got my edges usually of you didn't know the exact thing. You lost this game 17 turns ago type of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah. It's just like I think people might be aware that Prism is a deck, but don't like necessarily refine their strategy beyond like, oh, sometimes I gotta kill the auras and then I gotta kill them.
Hmm.
Go face. Like whereas if you're playing against like one of the top decks, like you know exactly like what it is that they're trying to do because like everyone only has so much time to prepare.
Well, it's also playing with a target on your back. Like that was one of the things that made me not want to play Icelander for nationals. Once the meta kind of shifted towards ice decks being popular, and then the aggro decks started adjusting to beat the ice decks, I was like, I don't know if I really want to play an ice deck with a target on my back. That just sounds fairly annoying. Of like now I'm losing one of my edges in this matchup. Like this deck is much better when no one's looking at me. Um, and for me, that's like always been one of my reasons why I don't usually play the meta tier one best deck in format. Like I didn't play Chain back in the day I don't like playing the best deck, but part of that also comes from me, my origins of being a poor Yu-Gi-Oh kid. I can't afford to keep jumping from tier 1 deck to tier 1 deck and then seeing it get banned underneath me.
Yeah, just play Prank Kids or whatever.
Oh, I don't know what that is. I don't know Yu-Gi-Oh anymore.
That's yeah. I mean, there's a lot to kind of like think about, and I think that again, like you get benefits. I think if you want to play meta, then you definitely have to like. I think you have to like take like where the meta deck is like beyond where it currently is in order to do well at a tournament. I think it's pretty rare that you can win a tournament just by like net decking exactly
Yeah,
like the 80 cards that someone else
yeah,
won with.
like Dan and them, they innovated the Phi deck. Um, Michael, he innovated the Icelander deck. This game also really lends itself to brewing, which is nice. I'm not used to that.
Yeah, little did you know you could have played with Icelander, but you just had to dig through your WTR commons.
Mm. Mhm.
Oh man. Yeah, I do think that there's a lot of space for brewing. There's a lot of space to try to like well was it like Art of War or I forget like some not the card like the book. It's like you
Oh,
got
Sun
to
Tzu's
yeah
Art of
yeah
War. Yeah.
yeah it's like strike when your enemies are not expecting.
Hmm.
Um it kind of applies. It's just like you want to be at least on some level unpredictable.
Hmm.
And this kind of fits with the theme of the episode today. That's basically what I wanted to talk about today. It's a shorter episode, but I think particularly for anybody who's listening who just wants to prepare for Worlds, I think these are all things to kind of keep in mind during your preparation. Don't just like try to blend in with the crowd or like do whatever it is that everyone else is doing. Like it does give you benefits to kind of try to be like do things that are a little bit opposite of what other people are willing or want to do.
Yeah, I think the only way that you can have success by just, as you said, blending in with the crowd is by executing better than everyone else. Like you need to be doing something better than everyone else is doing that is doing the same thing. Otherwise, you're just another face kind of thing of like what's making what you're doing different than someone else. So it's like finding an edge through deck building or deck planning, or finding an edge through just raw game skill or something like that.
Yeah. And so good luck to everybody who is going to be going to any of the battle hardens that are coming up. I think that next week is also just like I'll probably just come up with another topic to talk about, but then there's going to be like a recap of what's going on in Ohio particularly, and then I'll do my update on what I think the world's meta is going to be like, and then hopefully I'll see everyone at Worlds.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you so much for being on the show, Pheano.
Thanks for having me.
All right, until the next time.